Here comes the June Dokkan Fest hint. But what could it mean? How's it, everybody? Celtic Link here. We got another Dokkan Battle video for you here today. We are taking a look at the hint that they just dropped here on the Dokkan Battle Twitter, and we're going to break down what we think it means. We've had a couple hours to analyze this and come up with a list of different possibilities that this idea could represent. So let's go ahead and let's jump on in. So let's start with the first and most obvious thing. And the reason I want to start with that is because Dokkan Battle, when they do these hints, they typically tend to be very on the nose. So whatever this hint is, whatever your gut instinct is, whatever your first reaction is, the very likely scenario is that is going to be the case, right? We saw this with Tao. We saw this with the baby hint. We saw from November. We saw this with quite a few others. The Goma hint, for example. So whatever you believe is sort of the first reaction, that tends to be it. So let's hop on in with the obvious. So immediately when everybody saw this, the first thing that came to mind for just about every person here was Kid Buu. I think pretty much everybody looked at this and was like, oh, this is clearly the cliff that Kid Buu is standing upon when he first awakens. And I can definitely see that. There is a lot of there's a lot going on here that would sort of lean to that. You know, you've got the cliff face here, and there's very few other scenes like this where you have a character that is explicitly standing above a cliff like this. So makes sense that we might see a Kid Buu here with this one. However, there's one problem with that, right? We've already actually got quite a few TUR Kid Buus. Remember, this is a hint for a Dokkan Fest exclusive. The other thing worth noting is that these hints are typically for characters who yet to have received a Dokkan Fest, right? So that's another thing to keep in mind with this. So seeing as we have 1, 2, 3 Dokkan Fest Kid Buus, right? And any Kid Buu that might start as something else and transform into Kid Buu would also have a Dokkan Fest. It would also use the same Dokkan event, right? The Pure Destruction and Carnage is the event that these guys use. So it seems, while this is the obvious answer, it seems less likely that this is the case. Plus, a 4th TUR Kid Buu before we get an LR Kid Buu, Dokkan battlers might actually riot. So while it is the obvious answer, I do think it is the less likely answer. Well, what does that leave? Well, funny enough, there is another option from Buu Saga that could possibly make sense, and there's quite a few options to make this work here. While still being from Majin Buu Saga, there is an option for another set of characters, right? You see here in Dragon Ball episode 264, there's another set of characters standing atop a cliff face, and a very similar cliff face to the one we see in the hint. Atop here, we see the boys, Goten and Trunks, Piccolo, and Ultimate Gohan. All right, and this scene comes from 264, the search for survivors. Now, this is the interesting episode because this is, kind of after Buu, or after the initial encounter between Ultimate Gohan and Buu, right, where Buu starts to get angry that he's unable to defeat Gohan before he starts to, his absorption attacks, and it's interesting because this is this actually would line up with a lot of things if the hint were to be for, say, someone like Super Boo or even Ultimate Gohan from this, from the Majin Buu saga. Super Boo doesn't have too many in the ways of Dokkan Fests. In fact, there's only one true Dokkan Fest Super Boo, and that is the STR one. And he is transforming, mind you. Our other variations of Super Boo are the Tech Exchange Boo, who is of course starting as the who starts as Good Boo and then evolves into Evil Boo and then into Super Boo. And then we have the LR Super Boo. So, it's not out of the realm of possibility that we could see another standalone Dokkan Fest Super Boo, which we have yet to receive. This would also kind of fall in line with a few other things, especially because earlier this year, Super Boo actually got a battle motion randomly. People assume that because of the Deborah celebration, Super Boo was going to receive an EZA, and he ended up not. So it's possible that this battle motion update came prematurely in the setup for possibly a new Super Boo. Since this episode also deals with Ultimate Gohan, it's also possible that we could see a new Ultimate Gohan. Now, we've gotten quite a few Majin Buu Saga Ultimate Gohan TURs, right? Such as the Ent one, who has his Super EZA, the STR one, and of course the Tech Transforming one, who starts as Teen Gohan, and then of course we have the LR. So, I mean, I'm not saying we can't get another TUR Ultimate Gohan, but this would be technically our fourth one. So I think in line with Kid Buu, that also kind of seems out of the question. But you never know. Regardless, while both of these options do seem likely based on this, I do think that this cliff is probably more akin to this one here than it is to the one that Kid Buu stands upon. There's still one major problem, right? Unless they lean into some other variation of the category, there are no Buu Saga EZAs that these guys can work with, right? Unless the theme is saviors, and then they can lean into this guy's EZA, or possible. Honestly, there's not really anybody safe. If they lean into saviors, right, that's it. Otherwise, Buu Saga, all you're getting is Super Buu. So if it's Ultimate Gohan, that would be a really odd choice. If it's Super Buu, it's not an odd choice. It fits. However, they're not going to link together, which means they're going to have to sub EZA some characters in order to fill that gap, which there aren't many. I mean, even maybe they could Super EZA the they could Super EZA where is it here? The Int Kid Buu maybe could be an option to fill that gap. But there isn't much you can really work with on the Buu side of things. So I don't think that Majin Buu Saga is going to be I don't think that's what the hint's for. I just wanted to get those out of the way because I know those were the first and most obvious ones that people linked to. So, well, then that begs the question. If it's not that, then, well, what else could it be? So I'll start with what I'm kind of rooting for here. We know that TURs are now open for tag mechanics, and one of the things I've been waiting to see is a tag Vegeta and Super Trunks, right? Super Trunks, Super Vegeta from Android Cell Saga. This one makes sense, right? Again, if we're just playing off the cliff here, right? This could be that. This could be the cliff that Trunks is standing upon when when Vegeta introduces him there. It's not perfectly analogous, but it kind of makes sense. And when we think about EZAs, right, there are quite a number of EZAs we can work with here. Tech Super Trunks is up for an EZA, first off, so that would work very well. But also, we do still have this guy's EZA that could be tossed in there. And remember, June tends to go pretty big for characters and celebrations, right? It tends to be one of the bigger Dokkan Fest celebrations of the year as it leads into Tanabata. So there tends to be a lot of things going on during this celebration. So, I mean, it's possible, right? We could see his EZA and the other EZAs as two big premium EZAs during this celebration. So I did want to toss that out there, that is one possibility. And another possibility still fitting in the Android Cell Saga, right? Trunks is often depicted, right? A lot of his there's a lot of artwork depicting him above a cliff face. Even his first introduction, where he takes down King Cold and Mecha Frieza, is atop a cliff face. Now, the cliff face could be referring to Trunks atop the cliff face, or even King Cold and Mecha Frieza looking upon Trunks up at the cliff. So those are some options. Maybe a little less likely, but I think it's more likely than, say, Gohan or Kid Buu, because again, there's not a whole lot to work with them. So with that, there are a couple other Android Cell Saga options, right? And I didn't think of this one at first, but I did notice that there was a face. Like, even if you look at it right now, you can see that there's kind of like a hidden face in the rocks here. And I didn't really think of what it could be until, a few people had pointed it out. I was like trying to figure out who it looks the most like. I mean, it just looked like a face. And then somebody pointed out, right, it looks like Cell, right? And when you really look at them side by side here, like in Ningen's post, oh yeah, I definitely see it. And somebody even took the time to do the outlines. Yeah, I definitely see a Cell. So this definitely makes a lot of sense. The only problem with that is Cell just got a Dokkan Fest last year, and pretty much all of his Cell options that would be great options for EZAs with him are pretty much out of the question. So you'd be looking at super EZAs to fill the gap to Link with him. But even then, I doubt we'd see another perfect Cell this soon, right? Unless it's with a major celebration, like a super perfect Cell versus Gohan or something. I doubt we'd see another random TUR Cell. However, if this is similar to the 16 hint, where it was actually, right, 16's bullets, right, as you're looking upon them, if we take that same thing, right, if we assume that this is Cell and it's him looking up, right, this is him looking up at the final flash. So this could be a transforming Super Vegeta, which still falls in line with my this could also fall in line with my post here about the options for, right, Super Vegeta and Super Trunks, right? One of them Vegeta could have the active skill for his final flash, tag into Trunks with his active skill for the finish buster, right? Or even, right, maybe they can go a little wild with it and give him like the heat dome or the burning attack or something, right? Even though those aren't necessarily attacks he does there. But so it could be Cell looking up at Vegeta and Trunks too, and they be the actual characters, right? So the only thing is, so far, all of the characters I have mentioned already have Dokkan Fest. So that's the really weird thing about this is, I think if they work it, and this is why I also think a tag is on the table, because a tag would more or less get its own Dokkan event based on how they've treated these before. But it's really hard to say, honestly. Because I can't really think of anybody who doesn't have a Dokkan Fest who this would apply to, right? So even if we're looking at Cell, Vegeta, and Trunks, or Piccolo, or anybody, I mean, all these characters already have Dokkan Fest. This is just really odd. So moving on, another option, right, that some people have pointed out is a Turles, right? And I kind of see it, right? Just like the side-by-side profile with the Cell, there's a very similar resemblance here to the Turles. So it's possible maybe this could be a new Dokkan Fest Turles. Maybe it's a redo of the AGL one where he gets the Fruit of the Tree of Might. That would really help, as then he could link with his possible EZA partner for the for the Fizz Turles, right? And then here we could also see the sub EZAs for the Crusher Core. So that could work. again, right, the big issue is that Dokkan Fest, right? These hints tend to be for characters who don't yet have Dokkan Fest. This is a really tough one, but I do see it. I think this one's less likely. Although, I mean, we did talk about the need to have some kind of early Z movies in order to justify doing these guys again. But I mean, the issue with it being Turles is that Turles was the June Dokkan Fest in 2023, and I mean, it would be funny, but I think it unlikely to see another Turles June Dokkan Fest, right? So I mean, that's why that's kind of one of my last picks. Another option that I saw people point out, right, is the possibility of a Cooler, right? Specifically when Cooler knocks Goku into the cliff face here. I can kind of see it. We haven't had a TUR Cooler in a while. In fact, the last one we got was the last Cooler we got was the STR LR from Worldwide 2022, who, by the way, is in fact up for an EZA right now. It would be weird, but not out of the question for them to EZA these guys during a June Dokkan Fest. As I said, June tends to go pretty hard leading into this major celebration for previously Tanabata and now TDC. I mean, if they really wanted to sell people on prepping for TDC, I mean, a new Cooler, EZA the Cooler movie, at least one set of the Cooler movie EZAs, like maybe just these two, and then save these guys for some other celebration. That could definitely work, right? And they could super EZA the TUR Fizz Cooler as well, and give them some options to work with there. So it's not out of the question, right? We've already gotten some decent. It's in a decent place to happen, whether it happens on a monthly TUR or in a big celebration. Though I do think they would be big celebrations, but it's one of the less likely options, but I do kind of see it as an option, right? There's only so much to work with when we talk about the cliff, these type of cliff faces, right? So these are kind of all of the options I could come up with based on what I've seen and what I had arrived at as possibilities. I do think out of all of these possibilities, maybe this is just the cope in me, but I do think this Android Cell Saga tag unit might be the closest option, if only because they would justify a new Dokkan Fest event out of all the options. All of the other options that have been put forward by other people, Kid Buu, even my AGL Trunks, he had a Dokkan event, so this might be out of the question. Cell, Turles, Cooler, right? All of these characters already have Dokkan Fest events, so I feel like they are the least likely of the options just because of how they tend to handle these hints. However, it could be any one of these, but this is what I'm going to lean towards possibly a tag unit for Vegeta and Trunks, especially if the hint is actually the Cell face there. This would make the most sense. So guys, that is it for the video. If you liked the video, make sure you hit that like button and subscribe to the channel if you have not already. And in the comments down below, let us know, what do you think this hint means here? Is it Vegeta and Trunks? Is it Turles? Is it Kid Buu? Are we getting another TUR Kid Buu? Let us know in the comments down below what you think this hint means. Otherwise, guys, as always, thanks for watching, and aloha.